his bravery was recognised with a major award for work contained in this film.
کار ژورنالیست‌ها کسی مداخله نکنه و ژورنالیست‌ها بتونه آزادانه در تمام کشورها کار بکنه و این یگانه آرزویم است و همیشه زمینه زندگی خوب و زمینه زندگی سیف و محفوظ برای ژورنالیست‌ها مساعد باشه. این آرزویم است و تشکر میکنم از یاوات و من افتخار این آورده برای وطنم میبخشم، برای مردمم، برای افغانستان.
But without an independent inquiry into the events in northern Afghanistan, that bravery will have been wasted. The United Nations fears for the safety of its own staff, and the United States will not allow its military personnel to be tried for alleged war crimes abroad. While the Pentagon refused to be interviewed for this program, we did manage to extract some information. In June, Colonel Rick Thomas of Central Command told us they had held an internal inquiry and that they were satisfied that no American personnel had taken part in nor observed any atrocity at Sheberhan or Dasht-e-Laili. But in recent days, Colonel Thomas told us there was no inquiry after all. Merely a short debriefing of soldiers as they arrived home.
NATO armies have boards of inquiries, and I would be astonished that nothing has happened in the United States about this. It must be looked into.
In Kabul at least, there's a glint of light suggesting that the fledgling administration there is willing to follow a path where the US authorities may fear to tread. What would the Afghan government's reaction be if these crimes were proved against the forces of General Dostum? What would your government's reaction be?
If investigators find that there is crime, Afghan government exactly follow that in court.
In the courts?
Sir, you're sure, 100%.
You would take General Dostum to court?
Sure.
But the reality is that while the Afghan government appears willing to try its most dangerous warlord in the courts, their chances of success are virtually nil. The Kabul administration has no real influence outside the capital and would need the support of Dostum's greatest ally, America, to launch an investigation. The US authorities, for their part, are desperate to avoid such a scenario, as it would almost certainly result in their own soldiers facing charges of war crimes. One source, inside the Pentagon, told us, "You have to understand, there are folk in here who would rather this story just went away." But pressure is beginning to grow in Washington. These are prisoners who gave themselves up,
right,
were disarmed,
right,
and then shipped out to the desert and murdered.
Yes, no, that would be obviously a very serious concern and not something that we would approve.
Would it concern you that American soldiers were standing by watching as they were murdered?
Yes, it would.
Would you believe those were grounds for a major investigation?
Absolutely.
You would like to see that investigation?
Absolutely. If there is credible evidence that Americans were present when prisoners were being executed, that certainly ought to be investigated.
The American command has what is known as the stovepipe. In operations, that means war. It goes from top to bottom and bottom to top. So even the Pentagon would have known very, very quickly.
A crime is a crime under American criminal law. There is prima facie evidence, it's building, it's growing, and I think the force of this must lead to the Pentagon, if it's got any sense, coming out with an open inquiry and a proper investigation, including asking itself, has there been a cover-up in the Pentagon as well as in Afghanistan?